All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Southern U podcast, where we seek to provide education for Southern landowners. My name's Taylor McMurtry, and I'm joined with my man to the left here, Mr. Jeremy Ferguson.
What's up?
And we are, again, down a man. The man, the myth, and the AL Deer legend is not with us today.
He wants to pretend like he's busy.
Yeah, exactly.
But I've seen the pictures and videos of what he's doing, and all he's doing riding up and down the road.
That's right. Well, he claims that, and he's not even in the state. He's out of state somewhere, supposedly. So,
I think he's in Mississippi.
Yeah, I think he is in Mississippi. I think.
I think he had a spray crew going.
Yeah, NRCS overspraying something.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a helicopter crew or a hand crew or a skidder crew. We're trying to wrap all that up. We had crews here last week, so hopefully most of that's behind us.
Hope so. But you guys, hopefully you listened to the last episode. That was the part one of from the Gram, questions from the Gram, where our Instagram audience sent in some questions for us to take a look at and discuss a little bit. We did our best. Some of those are a little random and all over the place.
Definitely random.
So we did the best that we could, and we are going to attempt to do the same thing here and do the second half of those questions. So if we didn't answer it on the first, we're going to try our best to get them. Get it today.
You're going to have to bear with my mouth breathing. Now I'm the one that's got the crap in the sinuses, so bear with me.
Me too. Now mine has migrated from my sinuses to my throat, and so I have to clear my throat all the time. So we're doing the best we can over here, guys. So y'all bear with us. And before we jump in, I know we mentioned it last episode, but we were nearing our birthday as a podcast.
That's right.
And oddly enough, it worked out today, where today's October the 14th. We are officially a year old today.
Woohoo!
I wish I had the party blowers.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, we are officially a year old, and thank yous are in order. We really appreciate you guys.
Absolutely.
I'm just speaking for myself here, but I don't – it still kind of blows my mind that people –
Anybody cares what we have to say?
Yeah, that anybody would care what any of us would have to say, and even – look forward to it. You know, we see your messages when you guys send us DMs and comments and that sort of stuff. And, you know, whenever we get stuff, especially YouTube and Instagram, you know, hey, can't wait for the next one. You know, can't wait for the next one. Good job, guys. Like, it's just kind of cool. You know, never really thought we'd be here. So thank you guys so much. We really appreciate it. And tomorrow is opening day of archery season for – I don't realize parts of the different zones in Alabama have already been open for a few days, but this will be the official opening for the entire state. Everybody will be able to sling arrows starting tomorrow at sunrise. So we're really excited about this year's hunting season.
Gas stations, Walmart, and feed stores, look out starting tomorrow. Corn sales are going to go through the roof.
For real. How do I invest in corn, man? I want to figure out how to do that. Can you buy stock and feed corn somehow?
Yeah, hey, I had a farmer call me a little while ago and say, hey, we're getting ready to sell, you know, everything. They're going to haul it to their vendors and all that. They're siphoning off some super sacks to sell to hunters, and of course it's a lot cheaper to buy it in a super sack. But I called a couple guys, and it looks like we're gonna have a baiting competition.
Yeah, that is the unfortunate reality of the state we live in here. Won't get me going on that too much, but
wait, I'll take some pictures and some footage of the load I'm going to pick up that's going to one group.
Lots of corn, huh?
3 ton.
Oh gosh.
And they're just simply trying to outbait the neighbor.
Well, yeah, I mean that's basically what it is now.
Yeah. And the neighbor's going to lose this time.
What T-Bone says, you ain't baiting, you're waiting. You know, and that's just how it is. But yeah, I mean, we are fired up for deer season. It's finally here. Been antsy, man. Been ready.
Oh, yeah.
Especially cooler temps up here, man.
Oh man, this morning was
golly.
awesome.
That's giving me the itch. Can't wait to.
I've
get
been
in the tree.
banjoing with the new Darton a little bit.
Me too.
I got to make some final adjustments today. Folks, I don't know what kind of archery sights you're shooting. Taylor and I happen to be shooting the new, the Garmin
Zero A1i Pro.
Okay, so if you're a fan of that sight or you're going to try it, just understand you're going to have a dinner plate in your string as a peep so that you can line the housing up.
Yep, that's true.
It's going to take some getting used to.
Yeah, it does.
It was easy setup though.
I mean,
it wasn't bad.
If you check out Instagram or TikTok, I think it's in both places, but you can see I got my big camera, my cinema camera out, and did some slow-mo at 4K, like 120 frames per second, and then I also did it at 1080 at 240 frames per second. And you can see the slow-mo of the Aeroflight. Man, this Sequel 33 it's right. Like it's slinging them in there. So that's both good and bad. That means when I go to my SOA hunt in 2 days or 3 days, there's no excuses. So I can't blame it on the bow. But yeah,
I still can till I get that new peep.
Yeah.
I can gripe and moan.
There you go.
We'll get that fixed today.
Yeah. So, but yeah, you will need a 1/4-inch peep if you want to shoot that because to get around that house.
Also known as a salad plate.
Yeah. But before we jump in here too, guys, I would love. We try to remind you as much as we can, but we would love for you to send us any success that you have. You got hero pics and trophy photos and all that kind of stuff. Send them to us. We love to share your success too, and it's not all about us. We like to
and get creative with those hero shots because that can get entertaining.
Oh, I promise you, if I am fortunate enough to harvest an animal of any kind, you're gonna see. I'll be hunting out of a saddle, so you'll see the death diaper trophy shot for sure. And
death diaper.
Yes, my friend of mine did that a couple of years ago, and it's still like one of the. Every time I see it, I just crack up laughing. But we'll definitely do the death diaper pose whenever.
Oh, that's nice. Brock getting in the death diaper too.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Well, we'll jump right in here, guys. I know last time we went a little longer than we normally do. Maybe we can not chase so many rabbits. But speaking of deer season, our first question here, I think, is a pretty good one. It's not one that we've been asked as of yet, I don't think, all year long. But this individual, I can't remember who it was, but they sent the question is, what's your best or your favorite cut of venison and or recipes?
Man. That's tough.
It is tough.
Because I'm kind of a purist when it comes to deer meat. I don't have to
venison snob.
Look, I don't have to throw it in fancy recipes and all that to enjoy it, man. When I harvest a deer, if I can get those inner loins out,
absolutely,
and throw those on a grill and get those, I prefer my venison and beef rare. A lot of people don't, but I do. Oh man, if I can get them, just out and seared just a little bit and still a tad cool on the inside. Yeah, man. Yeah. I mean, you don't even have to have anything with it.
No, that's good. I mean, depending on what part of the country you're in, people call those inner tenders, fish tenders,
inner
loins,
tenderloins.
Yeah, which it is a tenderloin.
It is a tenderloin.
Yeah, a lot of times
tenderloin backstrap.
Right.
Backstrap on the outside.
That's right. Yeah, a lot of people will get those kind of backwards, but yeah, you can't go wrong there. I have found through all other podcasts and other videos, content creators, stuff like that, how to use a pressure cooker. and that has changed the game for me for not just venison, but for like a lot of different wild game. For years and years, my stepdad was just, totally against keeping the thighs and drums and stuff of a wild turkey. He's like, you can't cook them. They're so tough, not good. You can't handle them. And I'm like, I can't just leave that for the buzzards and the coyotes to eat. I have to bring that back. And so
I can.
I brought them back, and I attempted to make a turkey rice soup out of them.
Tried to get too fancy.
No, what I should have done is, like, it was still really good, but what I should have done is cooked the rice and kind of the larger or the smaller veggies separate instead of putting that in there.
Did it make a mush?
Yeah, just the rice just sort of lost its integrity.
Yeah.
It kind of started to get mushy, but all those tendons and ligament, all that stuff that he was talking about that makes it tough.
Oh yeah,
you can literally just pick it out. I mean, like slide the meat off of all that stuff and the bones. Like, you literally couldn't pick it up. I mean, you try to get tongs and pick the meat up, it just fall apart, and it was phenomenal. So of course that's not venison, but I'm just saying, I love what I've gotten to lately is, especially when it's like bitter cold. I mean, when it gets real cold outside and it's just like, I need something hearty. I want to eat something that's going to like warm me up. It's hard to go wrong with just like a deer stew.
See, and I'm not a big fan of ground deer.
No. This would be like a whole shoulder or something the way I do it. Yeah.
I know a lot of guys that make, they do a lot of grind on it, and they'll throw it in chili and spaghetti. Look, of course, I'm a beef guy too. We grow beef.
Absolutely.
Look, something ground, I'm eating beef. I know where my beef comes from.
Yep.
It's good beef. But deer, I prefer the whole cuts. I don't like grinding most of it up. I'm going to find something to do with that cut of meat.
Yep. No, I agree.
If I'm doing shoulders or I wanted to say thighs. We're not talking about chickens. We're doing shoulders and rump roast and things like that, or hindquarters. Man, I like separating them by the individual muscle and cook them whole.
Yeah.
Whether it be, I really like smoked meat. I don't smoke a lot. I've got buddies that do. But that's my go-to is smoked or either something on the grill. And Matt and his dad, Mr. Chuck, when we kill deer over there, we're real bad about just taking a back strap and just cutting it really, really thin, just as thin as we can get it. And it sounds kind of counterproductive. But everything's good with bacon. But we'll take and we'll cut strips of Wright brand bacon in half and roll that, with the deer meat and just get, best of both worlds.
Sure.
They like marinating in Dales. I'm not a Dales guy. It tears my stomach up.
Well, it's just so salty. You got to be real careful, to not just.
I am with deer. I am a very big fan of Pelletiers marinade with venison.
Okay.
With ground meat, even deer, I really prefer Johnny Fleeman's and going light. Because if you put a lot of marinade in something that's ground, it just really takes it in, and it can overpower you. Johnny Fleeman's is a good, nice toned down marinade that you can put in something ground and not overpower. If I'm going to do something with ground.
Yeah. I made the mistake one time of taking some cube steak and thought, well, I'll throw some kind of wet marinade in there. And, oh, my gosh, man, it was like eating a salt block. Yeah. I mean, it just, if it was a whole cut, like you were saying, it wouldn't have been that bad.
That's
but
right.
Because there's so many cuts, it's been cubed. It's
something that's been through a cuber. All I do is I put something dry on it and
exactly
then batter it. soak her in grease real good and hot.
That's right. Yeah, it's funny as far as like a cut of meat. I feel like something that doesn't get enough love particularly on a deer. On beef, it's actually not good at all. But when you're breaking down hindquarters, some people call it a hidden tenderloin. It's the eye round.
Oh yeah.
And on a deer, it's actually not bad.
That's not. Yes.
It's pretty good. But now beef, eye round is flavorless. Like can kind of be somewhat tough.
It's almost a placeholder.
Yes. Yeah. I mean,
but you can cook eye round, and it be good. As long as you take care of it.
For sure. Yeah, and I think it's kind of that's actually a really good point, though. I'd forgotten about the wet marinade on cubed stuff. You better be careful with that because it just soaks it up.
And I know people love their rubs and different meats, and if I'm grilling, I'm sticking with you big three.
It's PG,
salt,
baby.
pepper, garlic.
That's right.
Leave the rest of it in the cabinet.
Yep. I saw something. I'm pretty sure it was on the Outdoor Channel. Can't remember what the name of the show is, but a guy was talking about a seasoning that's in the kind of native to the Middle East I think it's called za'atar is how it's pronounced, but it's got a bunch of oregano in it, and
I love oregano, but it can wear you out.
It can. It's got I can't remember.
Like thyme.
Sesame seeds, oregano, and some other, I can't remember what all I had in it, but basically he was using it to cook fallow deer, I think. And I thought, heck, man, I'll try some of that on some, whitetail. And oddly enough, it I had to buy it from somewhere in Turkey. It's not even something that's like bottled around here. Yeah, it's a dry seasoning, but yeah, I had to get it shipped internationally, and it's good though. Basically, the way that you were talking about, hey, I just want to sear this on both sides and eat it. That just kind of doing a dry rub with that stuff on there, and I'm not, obviously we're not endorsing anybody here, but if you're a fan of Dale's and you want something that's kind of like that's not quite as potent with the salt. Moore's is another alternative. Moore's marinade is that kind of realm, but it's just not so salty.
That's right.
So you can kind of go that route too.
And I almost rank mine. You got Dale's, you got Moore's, Pelletiers, and Johnny Fleeman's are even a step further because they're not very salty.
Yeah.
Don't seem to be anyway. But Dale's. Is extremely salty.
Yeah, it is.
But there's a lot of folks if you use it in the right way, it can be great. You just got to know what you're doing.
Well, small amounts and don't marinate it for very long.
Yeah,
it's good. It is good.
In Alabama, Diamond Jim's and Big Mike's steakhouses both. To my knowledge, they use the same provider for their beef, but you can get theirs marinated in Dale's or Sans Dale's.
Right.
And every now and then I'll get one with Dale's. Because they don't overdo it.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, if you know what you're doing, it's, I'm not trying to throw Dale's under the bus. We love you, Dale's.
No, but now if you take, a couple pounds of ground beef or deer and put in a Ziploc bag and pour half a bottle of Dale's in it,
you're going to be looking for some water.
Yeah, I mean, you've done it wrong.
Yes.
It's just going to be really, really salty.
Yep.
But, yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. But that's just kind of our, I guess, take on cuts and seasons and stuff. But
just basic. There are some fancy dishes that I've had with wild game. I can't remember what they were called, and I'm not a fancy cook, so I couldn't begin to recreate them, but I've had some really good, interesting dishes through the years traveling.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I remember one year it's been several years back, and I had COVID, and I'm just in quarantine, bored out of my mind, and I got on Facebook and just asked people hey, what's the best meal you've ever had in your life that you've ever, maybe it was on vacation, or maybe it's just something that your grandma used to cook, or what's your best meal? And Wade Williams got on there and he said, Big Sky, Montana, red deer risotto. And I was like, that sounds awesome. And he
Yeah.
was like, it was the best thing I've ever had in my life. Like,
And red deer is very, very good.
I've never had it, but yeah, sounds,
Yep.
risotto is good anyway.
It
so.
is. Yep. I've not eaten just a ton of game outside of deer, but red deer, elk. I've not had moose or bear, and I'm probably not going to try bear.
Don't think so.
Yeah, trichinosis kind of worries me.
No, that's got to go in a crock pot for like 12 hours
Yeah.
before I'm going to touch that. I just.
And
not
feral
worth it.
hog, I mean, look, you can have good feral hog. It's got to be a small one, in my opinion.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So.
Well, there's some at this place where I'm going this weekend, so
Yep.
maybe we'll bring one back. We'll test it out.
Squeal like a pig.
Squeal like a pig. All right. Second question here. How to find neighborhoods with mature deer when buying land. We just happen to have a resident land guy in the room.
Yeah,
and
buddy.
Land broker. So, there's probably more nuance to that question, but that's all that
I'm
we
going
can
to I'm going to take the word neighborhood, and I'm going to dissect that out of that sentence and set it over to the side.
Right.
Because I'm not looking for neighborhoods with deer,
No.
so to speak, but areas. If you're looking for areas that consistently produce big deer, you're going to have to spend some time doing some research.
Yep.
And you're going to have to do it online. You're going to have to do it using books. If you're really, really wanting to nail down, like, hey, I want to live in the part of the country that produces the highest number of Boone and Crockett bucks on an annual basis. Well,
Probably
move out of the
a different
southeast.
state. Yeah.
Yes, but you're going to have to get in like Pope and Young, Boone and Crockett state record books and start looking that stuff up. Mm-hmm. I'll tell you who knows a lot of that off the top of their head because they stay in it is RL. Mm-hmm. I mean, he knows a lot of the counties in each state that, by and large, that's where your biggest biggest number of large corn bucks come from. But by and large, I mean, it's Bergman's rule. You move north, you get bigger bodied deer. Bigger bodied deer on average have bigger antlers. So move north, is a good way to think about it to an extent. But you're also going to have to look at soil types. You're going to have to look at the way hunting seasons are structured. If you're looking for this in Alabama, if you're looking for the best place to kill, good deer in Alabama, then it's going to turn more into looking for areas that either one have less hunting pressure due to there either being not very many deer or just not hunting opportunity, in some of the suburbs and things like that. Or you're going to have to look for areas that are highly managed. Can you just show up in a random spot in Alabama and there be a big deer? Sure. But most of the places that are producing numbers of quality bucks, it's in one of the two places. Somewhere that's got a lot of management going on or somewhere that not a lot of hunting is taking place.
Right. And I think that's probably the best approach. And I don't know. This is me totally projecting on this question, but maybe the question is being asked with the word neighborhoods, saying, hey, like I'm seeing a whole lot of this urban hunting.
Yep.
I'm seeing booming metropolis Atlanta produce these big deer.
And it's and the not the strange or the funny thing is the reason that's come to the forefront is because of these cameras.
Absolutely. Sure.
You got everybody filming hunts and doing podcasts and videos now to where they weren't. Killing deer in suburbs in Atlanta, in Birmingham, Nashville, that's not new.
Right.
I mean, when I first got out of college in 2005, the guys that I knew that were killing the most consistent big deer that I knew about were guys that lived in Georgia and killing deer in around Atlanta, Marietta, Alpharetta, those areas that had some big communities in them, big nice homes, and they were getting access to hunt some of those communities and killing giants.
Yep, big deer.
200 plus inch deer on an annual basis, or at least Boone and Crockett's on an annual basis, but killing 200 inch deer, which was, getting started in this industry, the 200 Club was something that, man, I mean, nobody was in then. But now with management and things that are taking place, deer are getting older, deer are getting bigger. One, because of some states, the way they're managing their herds, but, also people, the way they're managing.
Right.
And look, some deer are just going to slip through the cracks and they're going to get big. I mean, that's just fact of life.
Yeah, and I think too, I think what's raising the most questions or getting people to sort of scratch their head on some of this stuff a little bit more now as opposed to years ago is like, okay, there's bigger deer being killed in these suburban areas. All I've ever heard is you got to have good genetics and you got to have good habitat. Well, some of these places, like, man, I don't know that they have either, or they have genetics, or their habitat sucks, and yet here we are killing.
They've got two things going for them, and it's not native habitat that you're going to have to look at. It's all the non-native stuff that's there. All of the trees, the flowering bushes, shrubs, and things that folks are planting. A lot of those, even though they're non-native, are desirable to deer. So deer are wearing people's shrubbery out.
Right.
But the number one thing that these deer are getting that's allowing them to get that size is age.
Yep.
I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm just saying some of these subdivisions around where we live that I know have deer, 99.9% of the people in those subdivisions, if you ask them to hunt, they're going to tell you to go do something to yourself. That they're not going to have any part of you hunting. And so those deer are getting old. We see it. I mean, there's places. My office in Guntersville, there's a guy come in and shows pictures a couple times a year. I'm downtown Guntersville, within 5 or 6 blocks of my office, 140, 150 inch deer.
Yep.
And everybody knows it, but nobody's going to let you hunt that area.
Right.
Those deer will occasionally get killed by somebody that owns the property that hunts. Most of them get hit by cars.
I was about to say most of that is fatalities from cars and stuff.
Or, somebody shooting one at night. That happens plenty.
Oh, yeah. But and again, that may not be what you're asking, the question was, but I just wanted to kind of maybe go that route just for the sake of maybe that's where where he was trying to go with that question.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to have the time and the dedication that these guys, like BJ that works for us at Tut, with Suburban Bowhunter, and the guys with Seat One. I wish I had that dedication to go to suburbs and knock on doors and find places to hunt. I don't.
Right.
There is nothing that I would hate more than doing that, because that's just not me. Those guys, man, that's what they like.
Sure.
That's part of the challenge is find somebody that I can talk to, I can tell my story to, that I can, bad as I hate to say it, I can talk somebody into letting me hunt. That's part of their challenge, man.
Sure.
And by and large, I'm going to say that's the hardest part of their killing those deer. It's not killing the deer. It's getting permission where those deer are.
Absolutely. I mean, I think back to, like, you guys have seen Al Temechko from Vitalize on our podcast. He's we love Al, sponsors us, and he's a great dude. Well, he's in Southern Ohio. Well, it's a $1 state.
Yep.
So
and he's done.
He's done. I mean, if y'all saw the deer that he killed, it's a great. I mean, just a bruiser of a deer.
About like he was last year. I think he killed a deer first week last year.
Yeah, and so now so I think some of that is what factors into in the South.
Oh, absolutely.
Because now, like, even if Al wanted to hunt, wanted to shoot more, he can't do it. So it's either let these deer get killed by coyotes or something like, or could I invite a friend or a family member? Say, hey, won't you come hunt the farm? And I've got 3 or 4 deer on camera that are eligible, that are old enough, and why don't you come and see if you can get one on the ground? That don't happen here.
No.
Because number one, we're not a 1-buck state.
That's right.
You've got multiple bucks.
Well, look, best friends ain't going to let their best friend shoot their deer either.
That's
their
right.
deer.
And so I think maybe, this is just me, an opinion, but maybe that has something to do with it.
Oh, it most definitely has part of it.
But being able to have multiple bucks, and like I said, hey, if you don't get permission, ain't nobody going to kill that deer.
Right.
So that's the art of persuasion there, trying to figure out how to do that.
That's right. Yeah. And look, that's one of the only places that I have kind of disagreed with management of southeastern states from a population and a bag limit standpoint, seasons and bag limits. I would love to see our rifle season reduced. I don't know a good way to still give hunters the opportunity to be out there and harvest because, it's property rights deal. We have plenty of deer,
For sure.
But I would prefer seeing a less expansive season when it comes to gun season.
And that's what again, this is not a rant. I'm not angry about anything. This is just kind of an opinion. But as far as, like us going to another state to hunt, let's just say you go to Kentucky or you go to Illinois, you go somewhere, it's because they have something there that you don't have here, right? And the draw there is bigger bucks. Like there's bigger deer there and that kind of thing. So I'm not saying that Alabama could ever be those states. You don't have the same deer. No, not ever going to be. But what I am getting at is the only draw that an outsider has to come to Alabama to hunt is, oh my gosh, man, they got a rifle season that's a year long. Not really, but 3 months.
Yeah.
3 months of centerfire rifle season that you can go and harvest deer.
Well, we've got the late rut.
Right. And so those are the only 2 things that would bring people in here. So part of it is cool. Part of it is like, hey, there is a really cool opportunity here to go and hunt a state that has such a liberal bag limits and a long rifle season. And I don't think you just completely throw that away, but I think that it would be better for residents if you did. Hey, look, we still have a long rifle season. Maybe it's 2 months instead of 3. Maybe or whatever. Just have this window where it's not like you've heard Matt talk about that a lot, especially extending that on into February.
Yeah,
you can wipe deer out if you want to,
especially up here where we are.
Yes. So again, that's just kind of my spiel. It's just to go, hey, what's attractive about hunting here?
Yeah.
Late rut, bag limits, and maybe your that rifle season.
Yeah.
You can still have all those things. It's just shorten up that rifle season some.
Yeah, and I want to quantify that a little bit, especially for up here in our part of the world, in North Alabama, where we are Cumberland Plateau, closed canopy hardwood, more so than mixed pine, scattered open ground. When you get a little further south, is through the years our recruitment rate for fawns coming into the population up here, best I remember, was right about 0.7. So for every doe, we're only pulling in 0.7 fawns into the recruiting or the recruited population that's coming along. You get further south, and it was somewhere around a fawn and a half.
Yeah, like 1.5.
Yeah, so you lose a doe down there, well, you're still kind of have an upward trajectory of your population. Here, I mean, you're already a downward trajectory, and then you add hunting and other additive mortality in it. So we keep a downward trajectory if we're not careful. You know, and hunters and managers have to play that role.
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
Like where we had our place in Jackson County for several years, we didn't shoot a lot of does. You couldn't really. If you did, you didn't have does hanging around at all. You know, during the year. During the springtime, we'd have a lot of bucks and does in the bottoms because we had agriculture. But when the acorns started falling, they just scattered back out, and it would reflect the true deer density of that part of the world.
Right.
And we just didn't have that many deer.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, again, I'm not advocating for necessarily anything really other than, one way or another. I just think that.
Well, I am advocating for it. I want to. Rifle season,
other than that, I'm just saying, like, I'm not saying, you'll hear people on other podcasts and other even TV shows talk about if we scaled back harvest in Alabama,
back to $1,
we could be Illinois. No, you can't. No, we can't.
We're still going to be Alabama.
Yes, you still have pine trees. You still, you know what I mean, and unmanaged pines. You know what I mean. That's kind of the deal. But
Alabama is producing a lot of great deer.
They are,
but it's management philosophies have changed in the last few years.
For sure. So anyway, I'll get off of that. But third question here, and I apologize. I try to jot all these questions down when they come in so that I don't forget them. Jeremy and I don't really know how to ask this question in the way that you may have asked it originally. So I'm going to take a stab at this and kind of project what I think you might have meant when you asked the question. But this is drill down food plots, and in parentheses says real life examples. I'm assuming that this means when would you want to drill a plot and when would you want to just broadcast a plot? I guess. Now, that may not be what this person's asking at all.
Yeah.
But if it is,
we'll try to cover it broadly. When it comes to drilling fields versus throw and mow versus conventional tillage, to me, the best method is always drill if you have access to it. Mm-hmm. The only times that I'm going to back away from that is if we've got just a tremendous amount of thatch on top of the ground that the drill is going to struggle getting through, or there's so much thatch that we're struggling on breaking down and getting our nitrogen carbon off. Mm-hmm. There are always going to be times and situations where you may have to do tillage to reduce, the thatch or build up of certain type of nutrients. And then there are certainly soil types that you don't ever want to run a disc through if you can help it. Mm-hmm. So that's going to be location specific. It's going to be soil specific, and that's also going to change. So it's going to be fluid. Mm-hmm. Just basic real world example here. My farm, I'm going to be drilling here in the next couple of weeks. I have terminated where I'm going to be planting, so I've sprayed it with glyphosate. Mm-hmm. Everything's burnt down. It's just sitting there. As soon as I get a chance, I'm going to drill, and I can walk away. But I'm going to be drilling, I think it's 13 or 14 different species into one, so that it works well off of symbiotic relationships with all those different
Right.
species.
And so I know that you said soil type too. Like if it's an area is particularly hard rocky ground, is that let's leave that alone? Let's not
leave the drill out of the rocks.
Yeah.
Yep. If you're like, we've got a customer here in Marshall County that's on Grant Mountain, and it's rocky. Look, I can't hardly do anything for him except for put seed on top of the ground and bush hog it.
Yeah.
I can't put a drill in the ground because there's limestone rock everywhere. If you disc that ground, you're just bringing rocks up every time you try to cultivate. So really, it's just a throw and mow situation. I mean, and it's unfortunate, but it is what it is.
Right.
I can't change his ground. Somewhere like the south in deep sand, man, running a drill over sandy soils is the way to go. Don't put a disc in sandy soils if you can help it.
Yeah, I've kind of wondered how that would, because I've been on certain places like in Bullitt County that, I mean, it looks like where these food plots were planted, it looks like coastal, like beach sand.
Yeah.
And so you're saying that's probably a good candidate to drill that in there.
Yes.
Instead of trying to till it up.
I mean, because most instances, any kind of seed you're putting in the ground, it's all going to be shallower than that.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, if you're wanting to put out little bitty tiny clover seed, that's this big, or a wheat seed that's that big, dropping a disc in the ground like mine, it's a Athens 97. That thing's going 6 inches into the ground. I don't need that depth of cut,
right?
Especially not sand. I mean, I'm just turning the world up.
Mm-hmm.
So if I can put coulters in the ground and drop seed in the ground that deep, and that's the only disturbance I do, that's what I'm after.
Gotcha. I got you. Well, and I don't have much to add to that discussion.
And I would like that guy or gal, whoever sent that question in, to follow up on that, because I'd be curious, kind of what they mean by real world examples, like what, if they're asking what species we're planting, or if I would plant this with a drill and this with a disc, or.
I mean, that's kind of what I took away from it, is at what point would you look at something and say, yep, let's use the drill, or go.
But I'm always going to go drill first unless there's something out there that's going to tear my drill up.
Okay.
That's more or less what it boils down to. If I can drill and I don't risk tearing it up, then I'm going to drill.
And is that just because it gives it the best scenario to germinate?
Best seed placement. One, it's efficient for us because it's just one pass and you're done.
Gotcha.
Okay. Two, you're not only your seed placement, but the way that those drills work and compress those furrows back together, your seed to soil contact is much more consistent as well.
Gotcha. I got you.
Like, one thing that it breaks my heart to see, and I see it time and time again, are these guys that go out and they work on food plots, and man, we got some moisture in the ground, I'm going to go disc my food plots. Well, yeah, you do need a little moisture to work soil. I mean, you do. Mm-hmm. But when you work ground with a disc that's got moisture in it, all that moisture is generally going to be in the top few inches that you're cutting, and it's going to make clods at the top. Mm-hmm. And if all you do is disc and it leaves these big, fist-sized mm-hmm. clods, and you broadcast, and all you do is drag that thing back over, then it's just going to roll clods over the top of that seed, and there's going to be a large proportion of your seed that's going to be laying in airspace between those clods. And if it's got airspace, then it's not going to germinate well. It may, or it's not going to survive well. It may germinate fine, and it may not. But if it does germinate, it may get in that airspace, and run out of nutrients and moisture before it can get up around those clods.
Gotcha.
So you really want a firm, compact seed bed to have seed to soil contact, and you get the best with the drill.
Gotcha. And I'm assuming too, he's probably going, hey, look, most people, most individuals at least, unless you're a farmer,
Yep.
or unless you're a wildlife, habitat manager or something like that, you probably don't have access to, or you don't own at least,
Right.
a drill. That's not a piece of equipment that most people are going to have.
Well,
So,
and it's funny you say that. There was a guy, Jared. Well, I think he's actually Al's partner,
yeah.
but he's got the Habitat Chat
Yeah.
on Facebook. One of those guys asked a question. How many? And it was pretty simple, but it was just how many tractors do y'all have to keep management on going on your place? And he was going through all the scenarios, different things that he did, and to manage if you're going to have large properties and you're going to do a lot, then it can take a lot of equipment, but a drill can replace a lot of pieces of equipment.
Gotcha.
It can replace a disc. It can replace a drag. It can replace a cultipacker. It can replace a spreader. You can replace a lot of things with
That's true.
with one tool.
Yeah. It just depends on how you look at
Now,
it.
it is a expensive tool. Matt and I own a PH Outdoors drill. I think it was 23 or 24,000. But my Athens disc, of course, I keep it because I do other stuff with it. But that disc is a $12,000 disc. The planter or the just a small spreader that we pull behind the UTV, those are $1,500. A bush hog like what we've got, a batwing bush hog, you're $15,000 to $20,000 there. So you can get rid of some of these other expenses that you have and can put that money there. You got to have a tractor that'll handle a drill. But it takes more equipment to handle some of these projects than some folks understand. But that's to be efficient.
Right.
You don't have to have all those
You can
things.
do it. It just won't be as
Absolutely.
efficient. Yeah.
You can plant corn and soybeans with a one-row push planter if you want to.
Right.
Am I going to do it? Absolutely not. Have I seen people do it on YouTube? Yep.
Yep. Well, I think when you're doing that to make money, I mean, you have to be efficient.
Yes.
Time is money. You have to.
That's right.
You know,
The guys that are doing it with less equipment are generally doing it for themselves.
Right. Sure.
And they're not having to pay anybody to come help. They're buying the equipment. We're doing it for other people plus ourselves. So, the efficiency's got to be there.
Yep.
And you also have to be able to trailer the stupid stuff,
Yeah,
which
that's
gets
true. You gotta haul it.
difficult.
Yeah, that's true. You definitely got to
Like I
haul
say,
it
Matt's
around.
got a 4-row John Deere planter that he can put on his tractor, and he's got his rows narrowed down, so he can actually put his 4-row planter on his tractor, put it on a trailer, and go with it. I can't. My 4-row planter is on 36-inch rows, so by the time my row cleaners are hanging off, or not row cleaners, my row markers sticking out on my trailer, I'm nearly 13 foot wide on my trailer, so I have to sit it on there long ways.
Yeah.
So, depending on what kind of job we're going to, we may haul different things.
Right. Yeah. Figure out what.
And my tractor is significantly larger than Matt's, but I've run into occasions where I needed as big as I could possibly haul.
Sure.
And that's kind of where I am. Like putting up shooting houses for guys the other day. We put the shooting houses together fine with Matt's tractor. It could get it up off. It could get about that much room under the legs for the towers. But then we had to carry those stands out and put them out on property. Well, mine had raised them 4 foot off the ground. Right. So I could pick them up and I could go wherever I wanted to with it, where he could not.
Right.
So you're going to run into instances where you need something smaller, something bigger, something different. It just
varies.
It does.
Gotcha.
And when it varies, it gets expensive.
Yeah, that's the truth. All right, moving on to our fourth question here. We actually, if I remember correctly, I think we've done an entire episode dedicated to this question. You can go back on YouTube or our Spotify and check it out. I think it's Harvest Expectations in the South or something like that. I think that's what it was called. But it's like the third episode we ever did.
Yeah.
And
that was the one Matt was on. I wasn't.
Yes. Yeah, you were sick, so it was just me and Matt on that one. And but this question is, what antler size expectations should be by region? So basically, I guess what region of the country we're talking about, you have different expectations when it comes to what kind of bucks you can harvest.
Yeah, Bergman's rule again. I mean, you
go north.
Yeah, they get bigger.
Yeah.
But you are definitely going to see pockets of the world that are consistently producing larger scoring bucks. And generally, I find that to be revolving around, again, management and then exactly where they are.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in Kentucky's one of the weirdest states. You could be in phenomenal deer hunting, big buck country in Kentucky, and you can go any direction 20 minutes, and it may look like you
Chernobyl.
Turd Alabama deer running around.
Right.
Just like that. The heavier agricultural areas, tend to have bigger bucks, bigger racks. In Alabama, I have found it to be interesting that you will find pockets of big deer, and that, for what, for my purposes, I trace back where those deer came from.
Mm-hmm.
Generally. If you've got bucks in Jackson County that, oh, by the way, here's 170, 180 inch deer. Well, part of Jackson County was restocked with northern genetic deer.
Mm-hmm.
Part of where we are, in Marshall County, was stocked with northern genetic, but not Iron Mountain, Michigan.
Right.
We got North Carolina deer.
Mm-hmm.
So they are from north of here, but they're not as big a bodied deer and don't seem to carry the same rack characteristics as Iron Mountain, Michigan deer do.
No, well, I think it's important to note that they are different deer. Like,
absolutely.
Different subspecies of
different
deer.
States, different subspecies. Matt would be the one to tell you because he really dug into it when he was at the WMAs, where all the different deer went. I've got the files. I just never got into it because I didn't work on the WMAs very often. But they knew where all those deer came from, and you could kind of track pockets of, oh, man, we got great deer here. Well, northern genetic deer were stocked here.
Right.
Well, we've got okay deer. Okay, well, those are deer that, came from somewhere else, but not the quote-unquote big buck genes. Mm-hmm. And then the deer that were stocked from Stimson down in South Alabama, where we always had deer, they're like jackrabbits running around. They're 100 pounds grown and don't carry the same rack characteristics.
No. But yeah, and I think even it's something to point out too. I think Matt, if I remember right, Matt said it on that episode that I was talking about earlier, but he was like, if you take the exact same diet and you feed it to him and you feed the same diet to Shaquille O'Neal, is Matt ever going to be Shaquille O'Neal? No.
That's it.
And he's got the best nutrition, he's got the best everything, and he just does not have the genetic potential to become anything that. And he's referenced before, like, landowners will show him a picture and man, look at this 6 point right here, man. He's big old body thing, but he's just not very big. What's wrong with him? What's wrong with him? Like, nothing's wrong with him.
Yeah.
He's all he can be, man. You know what I mean? We're not all going to be 7 foot tall. We're not all going to be Shaq. So
That's exactly right.
As far as the region goes, I mean, you already kind of touched on it. The farther north, generally, the bigger deer are going to be, and larger antlers. Occasionally, you'll get pockets of that are just isolated. Where you're like, man, where did that deer come from? And what you said earlier, a lot of it has to just do with birthdays, right?
Yep.
Hey, look,
giant bucks can come from anywhere. One of the largest deer that anybody's ever sent me a picture of years ago was standing on the big highway outside of Tampa, Florida. I mean, an absolute monarch.
Yeah.
In Tampa. I mean, living on the beach.
Yep.
Giant bucks don't happen down in Florida a lot.
No.
But look, there are individuals out there that's just going to be show dogs.
Sure. Well, I mean, to relate it to the sports world again, I've heard DK Metcalf, if you know who he is, wide receiver, played at Ole Miss, and now he's with the Seahawks. If you've ever seen that dude with his shirt off, I'm talking about he is a specimen. The dude is just ripped to shreds. His muscles have muscles,
Sounds like Taylor's got a crush.
I'm just telling you, the dude is a freak of nature. Like, he's unbelievable. And Kevin Garnett was interviewing him one day and asked him, "Hey man, what's your routine, man? What's your diet? What's your workout schedule?"
He eats candy, don't he?
Yeah, he said, "Oh, I wake up in the morning and I don't really eat anything until about 2:00, and I'll have some coffee. Then I'll work out, go to practice, whatever. And at night, he's like, I don't know, I eat 4 or 5 bags of candy." It's like, time out, man. What do you mean?
Yeah.
You eat candy? He's like, Lifesavers, gummies. I like gummies a lot. I eat gummy bears, stuff like that. And it's like, and you do that every day?
Some people just got it.
Some people just got it, man. And deer the same way.
That's
Some
it.
of them just got it. And, but I think repeating that, over and over again throughout, like, a region is when you start to look around at other factors that are going to contribute to that. Because like I said, it can happen anywhere. A big deer can just pop up in the middle of nowhere. And generally speaking, it's because they've had a chance to be all that they can be from an age perspective.
That's right.
But outside of that, it's like, that's what I was saying about the suburban stuff.
Yeah.
Hey, look, I know they want to eat shrubs and eat your hedges and your rose bushes and stuff like that, but I don't know that that's making this.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It happens, this stuff happens all the time. So, with that said, I would say in Alabama, in the South in general, just the southeastern states, 125-inch deer
is toad.
Is absolute toad here.
Yep.
135-inch deer is, you're putting both of those deer on your wall.
Well, look, I've never killed a Pope and Young deer in Alabama.
No. Nope. I've laid eyes on one.
Oh, I've seen plenty.
Yeah.
I've just never killed one.
I saw one for a total of about 3.5 seconds, down around the Selma, Sardis area, and an absolute freak. I would like to have just gotten the deer on video just to show people, because it was just an absolute monster. But that's it.
I would go out on a limb and just wager that these big bucks that you're seeing folks kill in suburbia are not 4 and 5 year old bucks.
Mm-hmm.
I bet they're 7 to 10 years old. Some of them may be older.
Yeah, it's possible. With no essential predators, I can't remember. You may know
if they survive the dogs in the neighborhoods as a fawn,
right,
and the vehicles, then they're probably okay until they get to show dog status, and then at that point, you got night hunters after them.
Right. You may know this study I'm talking about. I can't remember who it was that conducted it, but they took 100 bucks and put them in an enclosure that was free of predators. They had gone through and trapped and killed every predator possible, and I can't remember what the acreage was, but it was just a high fence enclosure, put 100 deer in there, and they were going to just see, with no predators, with no hunting, everything they need nutritionally.
Yep.
How many of these bucks could just live to 6 years old? And there was 15 of them.
Yeah.
That made it. That, you know what I mean? With no hunting, with no no coyotes, bobcats, no nothing. And
life is tough.
Yeah,
in the wild.
It is. And I mean, that's just when you start to think about it that way, it's like
as tough as deer are, something stupid and little can kill them.
Yes.
As tough as they are.
Oh, I mean, in an enclosure, especially, run into a fence and break its neck.
The deer that I've got mounted, I don't think we've seen any of those deer at the house. But I killed a 163-inch deer in Texas years ago with a rifle, high fence deer. He was part of the. I'll have to get Matt Moore, my buddy out there, to tell us. I think it's called Triple T program, but it's where they would helicopter net deer and put them in DMP pens.
Oh, okay.
So it was native genetics. It was not introduced genetics.
Right.
It's just a deer from that place that they caught and put in a pen for the purposes of breeding, and then they turn them out.
Gotcha.
But I killed that deer the year he was 15.
Gosh.
I mean, he was a known age deer, 15 years old. So
no teeth.
Yeah, I scored 163.
That's wild.
At his height, he was way over 200.
Mm-hmm. Started to go downhill.
Uh-huh.
That's crazy though. So, as far as region, hope that helps. Maybe that's a somewhat satisfying answer. Let me see real quick. We've got one more question here, and I was going to see if I could find it. This is actually sent in from a guy from our DMs talking to us. I know a lot of y'all in the South that may be listening to this or watching this have probably dealt with hurricane damage at some point and certainly recently with
tornado damage, same way.
Yeah. So he sent in a question, and he said, "Hey, our family farm has got hit hard by the hurricane, and we lost a lot of white oaks. What do y'all recommend for doing to get food back on our property as soon as possible?" So I think that's a really good question. If you think, hey, I've got this property set up, I've got it, how I want to hunt it, and there's plenty of food here, and now all of a sudden your world's upside down.
Yeah.
What do I do to fix it?
And that can suck.
Yes.
Depending on how much acreage you have. One, natural disasters generally are opening the canopy up, and they're providing for more diversity.
Mm-hmm.
Generally, natural disaster isn't the end of the world when it comes to trying to manage for wildlife.
Right.
The biggest problem you're going to have is access on that property, depending on what kind of damage it did. Ice storms and wind storms are terrible.
Yeah. No doubt.
And I apologize. I can't hardly speak. You're going to have to bear with me just a minute.
He's got to go get the mucus out of his sinuses. No, but I do kind of sympathize with these people that are having to deal with all this kind of stuff, because you spend a whole lot of time, a lot of money trying to get this stuff right and get it fixed the way that you want it set up. And even your roads, even access, being able to kind of, go to and from a place to hunt it is not easy to do. You spend a lot of time and money on those sort of things, and now you've got a storm that completely turns things upside down.
Oh, just wipes you out.
Yes.
From a hard mass standpoint, he could be screwed. I mean, he may not ever get it back in his lifetime. Yeah. That's the reality of it. But that doesn't mean it's going to long term cause negative impacts. Mm-hmm. One, I would clean up as much debris as I could to be able to keep access, ingress, egress. Mm-hmm. You can move through the woods, deer can move through the woods, things like that. And then I would wait a year or two and see how things start trying to come back.
Well, I know Matt's not here right now, but I had kind of sent this question to him to kind of get his take on it too, and he said depending on what region of the country you're in, that really could be improvement.
It could be.
Because, I mean, and even if it wasn't, sure, you've lost your white oaks, and that's not, I mean, that kind of sucks. You know what I mean? It's nice to hunt over those, but it's nothing that a prescribed burn can't help. You know what I mean? If you were able to kind of get the biggest bulk of that stuff out of the way, and then you kind of burn that, you know, now you've got this big flush of native browse. So
and look, in certain instances that's doable, in certain instances it's not. With a hurricane, I would expect it to be somewhat similar to large-scale tornado damage. Most of it's going to all be going the same way, more than likely.
Yeah.
But in 2011, we had a big track hit with the tornadoes here. You know, anybody that's from the South remembers 2011.
Ooh, terrible.
But one of our tracks got hit, and it was hardwood hillside. About 300 acres of beautiful hardwood just flattened.
Yeah.
I mean, and when I say flattened, I'm talking flat.
The state park here was hammered.
Well, the tornado track, it was the tornado that hit Tuscaloosa, picked up, and then sat back down in St. Clair County. Killed all kind of people.
Yep.
Several people. Just in the valley where it hit our track, killed 16.
It's awful.
But the track was about a quarter mile wide. There wasn't even any grass.
Yeah.
Grass was gone. So, you know, just off the sides of the track, the tornado track was our mountain land, and it just laid it all down. Look, you still can't get around that place.
Yeah.
That's from 2011 till now. There's just nothing you can do with it. No. We couldn't salvage it. We couldn't put timber crews on it. We couldn't burn it. Too much of it was elevated. Depending on how it happens, there may not be anything you could do except for a very, very slow, methodical process of track hose, dozers, clean it up.
That's it.
And that's unfortunate. I've seen some beautiful places get mashed.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, this doesn't have anything to do with habitat, but it just – I'm not saying you shouldn't take care of your property. It's what we're about here is habitat improvement and those sort of things. But just have some perspective to know that in the blink of an eye, all of that can be gone.
Absolutely.
There's nothing you can do about it. There's nothing you can do to control it or stop it.
Yeah, I talk to folks a lot just in this business, people that are buying tracts of land for investment. They're like, okay, so how do we protect my investment in the timber value? And I'm like, you really don't.
No.
You can buy insurance policies. Not worth it.
Yeah.
You just cross your fingers and hope a storm don't hit it, or fire don't hit it, or beetles don't hit it.
That's true.
Natural disasters can be tough.
They can, and
but look, the world heals.
Oh yeah,
the habitat's going to heal. The critters are going to survive. You just may not be able to use it the way you once did.
Right. Adapt and overcome.
That's it. And it's unfortunate that you got to kind of really put it that way. Is you really may not know your way forward for a couple of years. Right.
Be something to figure out. And
that's kind of like the thing I was explaining to Ernie when we were up there last year. I would treat a piece of property that had a significant change that you weren't planning the same way I would a brand new property. Figure it out for a year or two first.
Yep.
You may not really understand your way forward.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's a sign of a good habitat professional to not just set foot on a place. Hey, I've been here for 5 minutes. You should do this, unless there's something that's like, glaringly obvious. Yeah. But when you, Matt has said the same thing. If you set foot on someone's property and you immediately start making all kinds of recommendations when it's a new piece of property. You know,
Yeah.
the landowner just got
You've
it.
never seen it. He's only been on it a time or two.
Right. Like, you know, like that's a red flag. You need to we both need to kind of get our heads wrapped around what you have here first, and
Excuse me.
then
Yep.
let's
Let's
figure out
pump
what's
the
going
brakes.
on. Because I'm sure there's probably a lot of guys out there that would have said, "Oh yeah, you need to do this, need to do that. You got to, you know," and
Oh, no question.
but to be honest about
That's
it, and go,
billable hours, man.
absolutely, yeah, I'm here, you know. So, anyways, I think that's probably something to consider too when you're hiring somebody like that. But that's pretty much going to be it, guys. We ran through all those questions about as fast as we could, and we hopefully answered those. We did the best that we could do. If you want to follow up on some of those, you feel like we didn't hit those questions exactly from the right angle that you were talking about, you know, if we're having to kind of project on some of this stuff and trying to figure out nuance of text and
Yeah.
and you know, stuff like that's hard to do sometimes. So just shoot us a DM. You know, we'll revisit that stuff, or we'll talk to you personally, you know, and see if we can't get you some answers. But as always, you know, we don't talk about this a ton on here, but if you are in the Southeast and you are in need of habitat improvement or habitat management, give us a shout. You know, think you'd be surprised at how much land that we cover, you know, that go all over the place and doing this kind of stuff. So
Matt and I need to sit down and figure out how many acres, how many states, and that we've impacted through the years. I know when I was with the state, they had me sit down and do it so that they could do a little
bio.
bio publicity deal. And I think at that time I had worked on properties in it's either 11 or 12 states and dang near 1 million acres.
That's a lot of land.
So it's been a fun ride.
No doubt.
One thing that I failed to mention that we were talking about the buck size that I wanted to back up and hit just briefly. That one of our guys, Blake Brazil, sent us a message, and he was asking about these bucks with spikes on one side because they've got some great bucks at their place, and they started seeing a lot of spike on one side deer here in the last 2 or 3 years, and for them, that is is just a result of during antler cast. They've still got bucks that are sorting out trying to find those, and they're damaging the pedicle. So if you're seeing a lot of that in the South, more than likely spike on one side deer is damaged pedicle.
Yeah.
Because they're still pushing on each other, trying to get mates. But
No, it's genetics, man.
that's right.
It's genetics.
So just remember that one.
You got to shoot those kind of deer.
Yeah.
So you don't pass-
There again,
don't pass them
like
down.
Matt and I talk about, it's resource management.
Right.
If you're going to shoot those, don't call it a cull.
Yep.
It is resource management.
There you go. That sounds better, anyways.
That's it.
Well, guys, again, we thank you so much for hanging out with us, and you know, for hanging out with us for a year now. It's pretty dang cool.
And I think all of our attempt is going to be to produce more hunting footage this year.
Yep. Yeah, we've kind of committed to doing a little bit better job of that. Last year, it's just so easy to get.
Well,
busy.
you notice who gets to hunt and who don't.
That's right.
Matt hunts and Taylor and Jeremy work. So
my cameras don't take too good of footage when they're sitting in the case in here. So, but yeah, hopefully we got some more of that stuff coming, and I learned my lesson last year. You know,
taking
the camera in the tree with me every time.
Yep.
Last year, by the time we actually got set up and we had driven 5 hours to get there, and then had all the issues trying to access the property and all that kind of nonsense. By the time I got in the tree, I was like, I'm not setting my camera up. And here comes a buck, whop, So I'll have it. If I'm going to go through the trouble of bringing it with me in the woods and hauling it around, it's going to get set up in the tree.
Yeah.
So, but we appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. If you need anything, please let us know.
Yep.
And we will see you on the next one.
Remember, like and share.
Like, share, subscribe, comment, all the things. We love you guys.